That we were talking about applications before, and my first role at the bank 8 years ago was to start talking about business applications. So we brought in the concept of business applications, which we're not treating in Lean IX. We're doing that in our CMDB because the business services are handled on the operational side. So I've got some expertise on that side. But with Lean IX, we want to count on the other transformation is to talk, instead of applications, we want to talk about business capabilities. So the business capabilities is what we focus on. So Lean IX we brought in as a tool, and the idea was to sit down with all our architects, sit down with our business leaders, with our business lines of business, and have people talk about how do we define the bank, different business capabilities. At that stage, we had a white page. We started from nothing. We didn't have a system with business capabilities. We didn't know what they were. We didn't know if some were redundant or how we're gonna, what granularity we should define them. We had nothing. So we started, all the domain owners, all the architects sat down and talked with the lines of business and defined all our business capabilities. Today we have over 2,000. There's new ones being brought in every day, basically. The process is ongoing, even after 4 years. But it's taking us through that path. And a very important part of the path is that business capabilities in Lean IX are hierarchical. So we can define, for example, at the top, our 5 main business areas. And then underneath that, we have a layer where we define our business domains. And on our side, it's about 45 domains which resume our business. And under those 45 domains, you're gonna find all the 2,000 other business capabilities that are defined. So that's the first step we do with Lean IX. You bring in Lean IX, you put in your business capabilities. That's one way of using it. We had Mark earlier today, not sure where he is now, but explaining that he's using Lean IX as an APM tool for the application portfolio, and that's a very valid use of it as well. And we're gonna make use of it more and more in that direction as well. I'm gonna talk about that in a few minutes. But basically, the idea of bringing our business areas, domains, and business capabilities has really changed the way that we want to discuss IT with the business and with everything technical under. So that's the first step. The next step that we went in, because we're all enthusiastic, hey, this is working, we like Lean IX. It's actually, we love Lean IX, it's a great tool. We love Lean IX, it's user-friendly, it's useful, it's very easy to bring in data and to extract data from Lean IX. For me personally, that's a selling point that I try to share with a lot of my customers and my colleagues. But once we got excited with the BCM and we got that in, the next step was to use the BTM module. Well, we don't call it BTM anymore, the business transformation module. So how do we line up the business capabilities with where we want to evolve the business? So that's where we define what are the objectives of our organization. That's easy to define. You can sit with the business, they're gonna give you their objectives. That's the easy part. Then after that, the harder part is how do we break that down into transformations? So you have to define your transformation elements and how these connect with your business capabilities. So some transformations are gonna affect multiple domains, dozens of business capabilities, and they're gonna be transferred into projects which affect 100 applications, for example. So there's some huge projects, there's some smaller ones, but that's where you start seeing that level of relationship between these objects. That's really interesting for discussion. So we took that into the BTM, we built the BTM, the transformations, we've got over 1,000 transformations in the system, and it's great. And then people start getting excited about, hey, what's the next step? Where can we go after that? So we start dreaming of the Holy Grail. And that's where things get a bit tough. So the Holy Grail for us, at least in the first couple of years, was that why can't we take Lean IX to the level where we do the portfolio management? So let's try to take it and do the project portfolio and drive where we're gonna budgetize our money this year, on which capabilities, which transformations are gonna get budgeted, and try to manage that in Lean IX. And that's where we hit a brick wall. That's tougher. I'm not saying it's impossible. We're still shooting one day to try to do that, but it's more of a cultural change for the people who make the decisions on budgets. They're used to work with Excel spreadsheets very often, and they want to work in a very small room with 2-3 people and not with a group of people watching what they're doing. So it becomes more of a challenge. So that part, we have not succeeded yet, I'll say, to reach what we were trying to aim at that point. But it's a very interesting area where we're still trying to shoot for with different strategies. And why did it not work? Well, one of the reasons, as I said, is the cultural change. It's cultural change for the people who take the decisions and manage these things. But it's also due to the fact that we're not connected with our projects. So LeanIX is not a project tool, as we said. Our project tool, in our case, is Jira, Atlassian Jira, as many of you also use, I'm sure. So Atlassian Jira is all the projects. We have our transformations. How do we connect them together? So we hadn't done that step a couple of years back. Since then, we've moved forward. We have an integration with Jira where we send the business capabilities and the domains to Jira, and we're able to start connecting our projects with that. Eventually, we're not there yet. We want to bring back that information into LeanIX, but our instance of Jira is not a kosher instance. It's not cloud-based. So it's not allowing us to use the out-of-the-box integration. So that's a bit of an issue, which we'll solve at some point in the future. But through custom interfaces, we're able to make them talk together essentially. So that's basically how we got started.
Yeah. No, and I think that Sylvain and Banque Nationale are a great example. I work with Ontario Power Generation, Manulife, and I kind of see like this common thread amongst them and many other practices around North America, where a best practice is to really not boil the ocean. A lot of people start with like this idea of, hey, we have to define our target architecture state for 2029 before we can do anything, right? And it's this kind of objective idea, but also kind of a visionary, subjective idea. So they never do anything, right? So what I see these mature practices doing is that they all start small and they start with incremental wins. And then they get buy-in from the business over time, right? Because ultimately these architecture conversations, there's cultural shifts involved, there's politics involved, some people buy in from the business, some people don't buy in. So you have to start somewhere. And I think your journey is a really good example of how you can start small, get quick wins, and then build momentum off of that, right? So I know that we're running out of time. We can take a couple of questions, I think, but before we do, and we continue, and we can continue them during the happy hour. Before we do, I'm curious to hear Sylvain. I guess at this point, after getting these incremental wins, a lot of times EA practices are kind of silos, right? They're off to the side by themselves. I guess to what degree do you feel the bank's EA practice has integrated itself into adding value to the organization and has de-siloed itself?
As I mentioned, I think our domain-driven design is really the practice that we're trying to put together, and it's the regular glue that sticks everything together. However, our domains are heterogeneous. They're not at the same maturity level. They're not talking the same language. Not everybody's at the same place. So we need to deal with things one step at a time with each organization and try to balance things out, basically. So our EA practice, they've been very good. They built this 5-step process, and they take the domain architects, take the 5-step process and bring their domains one by one to try to reach the 5th step, basically one step at a time, and we have tools devised for them in each step to be able to manage them to bring the value to the next step and move things forward. So that's really, really good. One thing that we did that helped us secure value for the bank is that I've talked a lot about BCM, BTM. Personally, I spent a lot of time on other aspects. We talked earlier about the application portfolio. Application portfolio for us is in our old Remedy instance, which we're still using. So we are transferring, we have an integration with our Remedy instance where we are transferring the applications from Remedy to LeanIX every day. So the source of authority is in Remedy, and we bring in our applications every day. They're refreshed in LeanIX. So LeanIX has a fresh, clean set of fact sheets for applications. And that's really important because applications are going to feed relations to business capabilities and transformations. So that's really a key part. But we're also bringing other information. We're bringing our suppliers from the CMDB into LeanIX. We're bringing a list of our IT components. So we talked about different technologies earlier, our servers, the hardware servers, the types, the databases, the OS, all these type of information you're gonna find in the CMDB. We bring the products into LeanIX. So as we said earlier, one of our decisions was not to reproduce the CMDB. That's not the idea. The idea is you want to give the architect a 360-degree view to say, here's my application, here's what I need to do to make it fit better my business capability, and here's what underneath lies here. The OS is overdue is no longer supported. I need to move it to another OS. The server is old as well. The Apache server is not on the right version. We're gonna move forward. So the architect can have that view and make a decision based on that. So it's not telling him how many of these servers there are, what's the IP server, the IP address of the server, or even the name of the server. It's telling him this application uses some Windows 3.1, some Windows this version, some Oracle this version, and then he can make the decision. If he wants details, go to the CMDB.
Thanks, Sylvain. As I mentioned before, we can continue this at the happy hour. I think if we have like one or two questions maybe in the room, we can take those, then we can continue it outside. So if anybody wants to take the floor and ask Sylvain any questions, we're happy to do that for a few minutes. Aziz.
My question regarding the activity level map that you figured out with.
Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah, maturity levels. Very, very good question. That's something that our architects spend a lot of time on building a maturity mapping at the business capability level. So there's different axes: people, project, technology, and I forgot all of the things. There's 4 or 5. They are able to map what are the maturity today, what's my map, and what's my future value that I want. And by mapping these 2 values, then you can attach that to a transformation item and say, how am I going to transform from A to B? How am I going to go to that next level? And that could be simple answer, or it could be a very complex answer that requires multiple projects to get there, and transversal projects sometimes. So yeah, maturity level, very important. We also use process. So one of our key wins is we made LeanIX the authoritative source for business capabilities and domains. That's clear. We also made it since last year our authoritative source for high-level process. We don't use Signavio. Maybe one day we'll go there, but we're at the ground level. Our question is, today, we don't have one source for all our processes. They're all in different Confluence and SharePoints and people's desks, and nobody can go to one place where you have all your process documented. So that's a huge problem. So our first step is to say, LeanIX is our source of reference for process. Let's define our high-level processes there, and from there, we put links that bring you to wherever the details are, and wherever the lower level details are. That's first step. And then after that, we'll try to bring in more details. And as we get mature with a global process assessment and management, we may think of going to Signavio or something like that in the future. But for now, we're really learning to crawl. Let's bring it all together. And that's really a lot of work, because you got to define all these processes, and you've got to link them to applications, to business capabilities. So there's a lot of information in there, and you got to keep that information up to date. The challenge is not just to do it one time, it's to keep it up to date all the time. That's where your process owners, your domain owners are going to be sitting on their data, and they're going to use it every day to make sure that this data is used. Data that's used is kept up to date. Data that's not used goes very quickly sour. So maturity also put into the process. So in the process, we have a maturity level that we've put there as well. It's a custom thing. And that's one of the nice things of LeanIX is you can customize the model. It's sometimes tempting to customize it too much. So you have to be slow on the pedal. But it's possible to add objects in LeanIX and its model, and to add fields in LeanIX. So it's very nice for that. It's quite easy.
Sylvain, thanks so much. Yeah, again, the bank is such a good example of, starting small and getting those quick wins, building momentum, and then really building that out, through best practices to a more mature practice, right? So thanks so much for sharing your story. And again, we can continue this at the happy hour. If there are any more questions, I know that Sylvain and Amadou in the back are happy to speak about it.